Japan and Pacific relations are on the line because of tanks. No, not those tanks. These ones. They contain around 1.25 million tonnes of treated nuclear wastewater from the 2011 Fukushima meltdown, triggered after an earthquake and tsunami. The biggest nuclear disaster since Chernobyl. While the water has been treated to remove most radioactive materials, some still remain. And with 500 Olympic-sized swimming pools worth of water already stored, the tanks are now almost at capacity, and the water needs to go somewhere. So in 2019, the Japanese government approved plans to use a pipeline to release the wastewater that Japan says is safe into the Pacific Ocean over the next 4 decades. It's due to start this year, concerning some in the region who rely on the ocean for their livelihoods.
Our leaders continue to reiterate the urgent threat of nuclear contamination and the need to safeguard the future of our beloved Blue Pacific continent.
Concerns also shared by Japanese fishermen and some neighbouring countries.
The Japanese government will not win any support if it unilaterally decides to dump nuclear-contaminated water into the ocean, transferring the unpredictable risks to the whole world.
After consultations with Japan, some Pacific countries like the Federated States of Micronesia feel more reassured, and some experts believe the plan is sound. The International Atomic Energy Agency is reviewing scientific data from TEPCO, who operate the Fukushima Daiichi plant, to ensure that the discharge complies with international standards.
Fire!
But the Pacific refuses to be a nuclear testing ground again. And with good reason. To this day, the Marshallese people are still dealing with the health and environmental fallout from atomic bomb testing by the US from the 40s to the 60s, and they don't want to see history repeated.
We must prevent actions that will lead or mislead us towards another major nuclear contamination disaster at the hands of others.
Obviously, there is concern in the region. So what might it mean for Pacific fisheries? Ria Moss-Christian is the Executive Director of the Western and Central Pacific Fisheries Commission, which is in charge of the world's largest tuna fishery, and I spoke to her earlier. Yokwe Ria Moss-Christian, and Komal for joining the Pacific.
Yagwe Talea, thank you very much for having me.
Now, let's start with Japan and their plans to release treated nuclear wastewater into the Pacific. Japan assures that the water is safe and the IAEA will be monitoring the release. What's your position, and could it impact Pacific fisheries?
It is not an issue that has been discussed at WCPFC. This is not a topic that the Commission has considered in any way, at least not at this point. Sure, there are concerns, but my understanding is that discussions are ongoing in terms of what those likely impacts might look like, not just on fisheries, but on other marine ecosystems and just the ocean health in general. So as members, and certainly from within the Secretariat, we are watching closely to understand better and to see what Japan's plans are.
But could public opinion about fish health change and therefore potentially impact the reputation of Pacific tuna?
I suppose that's always a possibility, but at this point we don't fully understand how the radionuclides in that wastewater are going to behave in the ocean environment. We don't know how those chemicals and toxins are going to affect marine life. We don't have a complete picture yet. So from that standpoint, it's better to wait until we have better scientific information and better ways to understand how this radioactivity will behave in the marine environment and what its impact will be.
Yeah, indeed. Now, let's move out to the bigger Pacific tuna industry, because we know that nearly 60% of the world's tuna comes from the Western and Central Pacific region, which is really significant because those countries use that fishery revenue to help maintain essential services like schools and like hospitals, roads. What are the issues that are currently facing the industry?
The issues that are in front of the Commission, at least for this year, and that are becoming much more prevalent are in how to think about climate change impacts on the tuna migration patterns in the region. So the benefits in terms of revenue to the stakeholders, the Pacific Island countries, the custodians of this resource are massive. So the Commission has started to recognize the importance of addressing climate change when discussing stock behavior to ensure that the sustainability of these stocks continues well into the future, but more importantly, that the Commission is prepared and armed with the knowledge and understanding to be able to respond and make adjustments where needed when environmental changes are taking place.
What about illegal fishing? I know that the US is pledging money to counteract the pillaging of the ocean, and there's also reports of deaths and disappearances of Pacific fishing observers who, of course, play a really crucial role in tuna sustainability. What about that?
Well, there are a couple issues you raised there. Illegal fishing in general, illegal, unregulated, and unreported, or IUU fishing, is a mandate for this Commission to control. We don't have eyes on every single activity that's happening in this region, in this fishery, but with every year and as technology continues to advance, we are starting to close gaps, and that's all we can do is try to keep moving forward and make progress in that direction so that no IUU or illegal activities can get through. With respect to observers and the safety of observers, which also extends to the safety of crew, the Commission has a measure in place for observer safety and continuing to review and ensure that we are putting effort into strengthening that where that needs to happen. And likewise, the Commission is in the process of discussing a labor and crew safety measure, and that is still at the moment going through negotiating. But as with any organization that operates in this manner multilaterally with a resource, a very economically important resource with high stakes for stakeholders, there will always be a busy agenda. There will always be heavy issues to discuss. And the important thing is that this Commission continues to make progress, even if those are small steps, because those small steps will accumulate, and we will hopefully look for big wins in the future with respect to managing this fishery.
Indeed. Ria Moss-Christian, we'll have to leave it there, but Komodata, thanks for joining the Pacific.
Komodata.